What's up, everyone? I am Mike G, and today I'm bringing you the story of the 15th ranked women's flyweight competitor in the UFC. She has been through struggle and through heart and determination has come out on the other side. She's an incredible fighter and an even better human being. Ladies and gentlemen, Miranda Maverick. How are you doing, Miranda?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. How many days till your next fight? Is it
A little
19?
less than 3 weeks now. Yeah, I think around 19. Yeah, and I consider it like 2 weeks of training, so that's my countdown.
Wow. I don't know of any other fighter that has more schedule changes, opponents drop out. It's nuts.
It is nuts. I wish they'd let me fight as many times as other people do, especially from all the dropouts and non-ranked fighters and stuff like that I end up having to face quite often.
Right. Well, maybe someday that'll pay off big, hopefully.
I hope so too.
All right. You were born in Tunis, Missouri in 1997. Is that right?
Yeah, technically Jefferson City, Missouri. We moved
Okay.
around a lot when I was a kid. Lived in like 9 different states and eventually made our way back to Missouri. And now my family has a ranch out there in Tunis. And I live out here in Denver until I retire from training, pretty much.
It's the same year I graduated high school.
Okay.
I feel old. How were you first exposed to combat sports?
My dad, we had somebody in our family that had like an unfortunate thing happen to them when they were young, sexual assault of sorts. And my dad was like, that crap will never happen to my kids. And I
Yeah.
don't know that it was like, it's not like he told us that as he was teaching. I think it was just part of like his raising of us, wanted us to be able to defend ourselves. And when we watched the UFC when I was young, it was pretty raw and new. And my dad was watching all the way from like UFC 1. And once it got to where you had DVR and could pause it and record it and rewind it, we were already roughhousing a lot as kids and not just like rolling around in dirt. We were trying to learn and wrestle. But when we could pause it and everything, we would literally learn the moves that they were doing in the UFC, like arm bars and chokes and stuff. And we would never do punches and kicks, no like, striking, just the ground game. And it'd be myself and my younger brother and sister all against my dad. And, he'd teach us a little bit. And we just kind of learned from sparring, basically.
That's awesome. I read somewhere that in high school, there wasn't a women's wrestling team. So you joined the men's varsity wrestling team. Tell me how that experience was.
Yeah, so I was like an athlete of all sorts, growing up, and eventually I gained a lot of muscle mass over my junior year, summer there between sophomore and junior year, and found out that I probably was not going to be running track and field or cross country in college and do very well. And that was my whole thing, was find something to get me into college for free, because I knew my parents weren't going to be able to help with it. And so it was athletics is what I was thinking I'd get into it with. I was also academically talented. And I finally decided like this sports thing isn't working for me. I'm going to try another sport that I might be good at. And I had just started jujitsu that summer. And I was like, let me try wrestling. I'll probably be good at it, at least for a girl. And started on the team. I actually got lucky because the guy at the 126-pound division got hurt. And I got to wrestle. He was like the top dog, right? And I got to wrestle off the other guys for the spot in my school and ended up beating him. So I got to wrestle varsity as a high schooler just my senior year. I literally only stayed on the team until Christmas break, and then I quit in a very dramatic fashion in front of my coach. He was a very sexist, very hated individual who did not like me very much. And luckily they changed the coach the year I graduated.
I'm glad you had an opportunity to tell him how you felt.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. And then I went on, of course, to be very successful and also wrestled in college, which was nice. Even though I never got scholarships for it, ended up getting scholarships academically, which was nice.
Okay. That brings me in well to my next question. For people that don't know, you were a brilliant college student earning degrees at Drury, where my mom graduated, at the same time starting a very successful amateur MMA career. How do you do both of those at once?
It all just worked out for my age. I turned 18 not even a month, like 3 weeks before I got into the whole orientation for college and everything. I knew that I wanted to train at Springfield Fight Club there in Springfield, Missouri, once I had already, accepted Drury that spring. And I was like, let me figure this out. I want to take a fight as fast as I can. And literally during student orientation, I skipped all 4 days and went to training instead. Like I go here and there periodically, but it's just like those fun days. They want you to like get to know people. And I was like, I don't need that since. So basically figured out my schedule and then went to the gym every moment that I could. I was in there day in and day out, and I had a fight scheduled 2 weeks after I started college, and just went from there. And honestly, it's been the same way since. I had full-time job that whole time.
Hmm.
I full-time trained and I full-time school all the way through college into graduate school. And then after I graduated from there, now I work a full-time job, have my businesses on the side, and still train full-time, obviously.
There must be more hours in the day where you're from than where I am.
I just never have fun. That's what I tell people. I was never they're like, enjoy your time in college, be a teenager, be a young adult. And I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I don't need that nonsense. Time to get my butt to work.
Good
Like
stuff to
my
do.
dad and mom were already married, buying land, struggling, by the time they were 19. And here I am,
Hmm.
like 20 years old, still like working my way up to that.
All right, you're 7-1, and you get the call from Shannon Knapp to join Invicta. How valuable would you say your time was spent there, and what are your favorite memories from Invicta?
Yeah, I mean, when I got the Facebook message, from her, I thought it was bullshit and ended up finally replying back. And I was so excited because as an amateur female, Invicta is like where you want to go
Hmm.
because it is the highest like pro level. There's Bellator, there's LFA now, and there's Invicta. And as a
Hmm.
female, like Invicta is that feeder to the UFC
Yeah.
pretty much if you can work your way up there and really impress and put a stamp on everything. And plus, you get to be around a lot of the UFC females that go out there and watch them and all that because of where they came from. And so it
Hmm.
was very exciting to get into Invicta. My most memorable moment, I'd say, was my second pro fight with them. And I went against Cal Schwartz. It was Cal Holiday at the time. And they were like, she's a national placing wrestler. She's amazing at that. She just got done like KOing Tiffany Van Soist, who was the kickboxing world champion,
Hmm.
still is highly ranked. And so she was a
Intimidating.
scary girl. Yeah, she was a
Hmm.
scary girl. And I was cutting down to 115, which I will never do again in my whole life. It was very stupid. I was younger, but I was actually heavier walking around. Not as much, I wouldn't say as much muscle mass, but just when you're 18, you're not as like fit and nutrition wise. Yeah, you're not as smart with your nutrition. And so for me, I went into that fight, ended up going into shock in the bath during my weight cut. My dad was like, I don't even want you to fight. You should never fight again. This is stupid. You're going to die. Like there was all that stuff that went through my head. And I remember telling my coaches as we walked out, if I don't win in round one, I'm going to lose this fight. And they were like, don't think that way. And I'm like, I literally can't hardly stand right now. Like I had not
Hmm.
recovered from the weight cut, all that. And if you watch the fight, it's pitiful. It's so pitiful. Like went in there, I get hit quite a few times. I like throw a kick at her, end up splitting my shin open and fracturing my bone. And then she takes me down because she puts me against the cage. I try to do a guillotine. She slams me on the ground. And I end up getting an armbar after like 15 seconds of her almost getting out, and finished her with an armbar. And like, I don't even
Nice.
know if it was quite a minute, and I was so excited, and I remember my dad being like, "I love you, kid, you're the greatest," like, through the cage. He pushed a guard out of the way, everything. It was so funny, but, like, the most memorable moment as far as, like, growing my confidence and, like, starting to believe in myself and be like, "I can do this." Like, I don't need to be scared, I need to go in
Hmm.
and just do my best.
All right. In 2020, you signed with the UFC and are scheduled to fight Mara Barella on
Mhm.
June 27th at UFC on ESPN. Poirier versus Hooker. Tell us what happened right before that fight. I believe you shared with me it was the day before.
Yeah, technically, I think it was Thursday afternoon, so I still have
Okay.
weigh-ins, to do. So I get the call. I'm in Virginia, doing school, doing all that. It's right at the start of COVID. So no, the school is remote, and I had no job at the time, so I was just trying to keep my nutrition right because the UFC was the only thing having anything happen at that point.
Hmm.
And I was right there on getting the call. I had already gotten an offer prior that I had declined because it was ridiculous, like a 3-day notice against a like top 5 girl. And I was like, no, thanks. And ended up like staying on their mind, and I got the call and I was like, I'll take it. They flew me directly out to Vegas. I didn't have time to do my medicals in Virginia. I think it was a 5-day notice. And when I get there, they're like, okay, we got your eye exam all set up. They take me to the eye exam. Initially, it was like, hey, I see something wrong. I'm going to send you to a specialist. And I was like, what? And that was Wednesday. Thursday afternoon, I go in to see the retina specialist, find out that both my retinas are torn. Not one, but both of my retinas are torn. The doctor was like, freaking me out even more, you know. She was a super smart doctor, very well renowned, but she's not the most personable. And she was kind of just like, and she was like, "Yeah, I can't let you fight. I don't even think I can let you fly back home." And I was like, "What? What does that mean?" She's like, "Oh, well, you might go blind like at any point, like whether you get one more punch thrown to your head, the pressure from the airlines, like anything like that." And I was like, "What are you talking about? You know, like I can see fine. I'm fine, you know." And I'm like kind of arguing with her. And she's like, "No, you don't understand. Like your retina's about to detach on both sides." And I'm like, "Where's the evidence of that? You know, like what are you talking about?" And it was in my periphery is where I could see it. Like I didn't know to focus on my periphery, you know. And when I did, I could see like the little floaters and
Mm-hmm.
the sparks and all that. And ended up deciding to fly back to Virginia. My parents were actually a little upset with me. They wanted me to come back to Missouri, where the family is. And at the time, my now husband was a brand new boyfriend of mine. He had literally been dating me for like 2 weeks, not even. And I flew back because I was like, well, I've got my life there, you know, I've got work, I've
Mm-hmm.
got this, I've got that. And like, even though it's not in person, I still have to do this stuff. And it's just hard to do it back at the ranch, no signal, no Wi-Fi, like all that kind of thing. And I was like, I'll figure it out, you know, I'll figure it out. And so ended up going back to Virginia. Pete ended up driving me across 3 different states to 3 different surgeons. And that's kind of what made us close together. I was like, wow, this guy's like really showing that he gives a shit, you know, which was
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Even if he didn't care about me yet, he cared enough about my situation to support, you
Sure.
know. And after having very many heartbreaking conversations with surgeons, the worst of one, I'm like bawling in his like little, you know, office, and
Mm-hmm.
he's telling me like I might not be able to have kids, I'll never be able to be an athlete again. Like that's a ridiculous thought, even like telling me how crazy I am, how having a job with screens is going to hurt my eyes. Like very negative person, was telling me that the only surgery option they have was like an air bubble in the back of my eye. And basically, if you bursted that, boom, you're done. Like you're back to having a detached retina. I have to come and redo the surgery every time as a risk of permanent blindness. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like my life was turned upside down. I was very miserable, insane person for a couple weeks, you know, of just being a crying mess and depressed and not in a great headspace. And finally had a friend of a friend who knew a surgeon right there in Virginia Beach. Kind of crazy that she ended up only being like 50 miles away from me. And she had done retina surgeries on children, which is very rare.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's people over the age of 60 to 70, you know. And she was like, I can do it. I can use this old tactic that's like buckles around your eyes. It's called a sclera buckle. And so now I
Okay.
have 2 like sewed on, laser sewed buckles on my eyes called sclera buckles. I'm still at very high risk when I fight. I actually had another injury when I fought Jasmine Jasudavicius in the second round. I went blind in my left eye during that round, and a lot of people just don't pay attention to interviews and all that. So they're like, wow, you suck. But it's like the first round I was good. Second round, I kind of went into survival mode. I went blind in the middle of the round, freaked out. And at that point, I was just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to stay in the fight. But I didn't like have the heart to try, I guess you'd say. I was just trying not to lose the whole time. And that was scary. And it ended up just being an optical concussion because the way my eyes are now, like my optic nerves are easier to get to than other people's. And if they get like hit the right way or just have damage to them, it'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of just shut off my eyes. So very scary. And that's part of the reason I try to fight safe and be safe, and am investing properly in my life now so I don't have to be in this until I'm 50.
Phew. So literally any punch could be the end.
Could be. You know, I'm at risk, but I see it as worth it. You know, when I become a parent and stuff like that, it's definitely going to take a lot more decision making.
Sure. Yeah. Did you were you experiencing problems with your vision at all before this, or was what the doctor said your first inkling?
I mean, I've had like, I don't see the greatest. I've had glasses since I was like 2, but I didn't have anything that was out of the norm. But I did have a few like times I got knocked out in training. This never happened in a fight.
Okay.
I've gotten poked in the eye really bad. And we did find out it was from training. They were very recent scar tissue around my
Okay.
eyes, and they could tell it had been done within the last 8 months, which sadly was from the gym that I was going to at the time that just didn't protect me very well. We'll just say that.
I'm sorry that you went through that and that that happened to you. Um, let's see. You finally make your UFC debut at UFC 254 versus, now excuse me, Liana Jojua.
Yep, Liana Jojua, good job.
Awesome. How good did that win feel to finally get?
Oh, that was amazing, especially the way that I won. It kinda put a stamp on everything. I went in there with a lot of determination. I was like, "I'm not
Mhm.
gonna lose. I can't lose. I won't lose." And, went in there, and to get the doctor stoppage was even cooler because 'cause I'm like a submission person, not much of a striker at the time.
Right.
I was finally, like, catching my striking up to where it was, like, both pretty even, but I was still known for taking them down and submitting them. So I was really happy, really impressed with myself almost. I wish I could have gotten to show more in that debut, but it was such an exciting time, and the fact that, like, by my second fight, I was in the top 15, I was freaking out, and since then, of
Mhm.
course, the 25 division has grown. I think it's the most competitive division, out of women, at least in the UFC right now,
I
and
agree.
it's a little bit harder, but it's funny because since I've gotten in the UFC, I've basically been on that cusp of top 15 and just never get a ranked opponent somehow.
I think maybe they're all scared of you.
I have had many say no that I have called out multiple times, but Casey O'Neill.
I've I've shown a couple of Google photos of you with people I work with today, showing them who I was interviewing, and
Mhm.
every single lady I work with said, "Oh, she's the scary looking." I said, "She's the sweetest thing ever."
I do like get that sometimes. I have training partners, mainly females, that are like, I don't know, like when I'll ask them to roll with me and I'm like, I'm not mean. And they're like, you look mean when you roll. And I'm like, sorry, I just get into fight mode, I guess.
Vigorous determination.
Yes.
All right, UFC 260, you take on Jillian Robinson, picking up another win before being matched up against Macy Barber.
Mhm.
Share with us your feelings on that fight and the decision
Obviously, I
without
think
getting mad at me for
yeah,
asking.
yeah, yeah, no. Obviously, I think I won that fight against Macy. She now trains here in Denver, I think. Who knows what the story is?
Okay.
I won't get into that. She's tried to even train at my gym, and I was like, "Nah, not until you fight me again. Then you can come train with me. That's cool. I'm completely fine with that, but not until you fight me." And I've been trying to get rematch with her since that time. I don't know if it's her necessarily saying no or UFC saying no to it, but either way, she won't fight me again. So it's been pretty frustrating to watch her kind of climb the chain, me get way less pay than her overall, of course, and watch her hype train go off while mine kind of just derailed there for a bit. I got thrown to Macy and then Erin, who's now one of the top girls in the division. And those are my two, what I consider my two losses. I
Hmm.
lost to Jasmine too, but that was kind of an injury, not necessarily my skill. And then Erin, that was a total loss. That's the only loss I've ever had that I'm like, oh yeah, she beat me. Like fair and square, no denying it. She beat me every round.
Right.
So that one's the kind of the hardest pill to swallow, but at the same time, that's my favorite fight as a result of how much I've learned from that, how much I improved after that. I think that was the first fight I've ever been taken down in my entire career. And it happened multiple times, obviously, in the fight. And I was like, holy crap, I have a gaping hole in my game that I didn't even know existed because I would spar with people who like can't hold me down. So I had to get better grappling partners, start like having the guys go harder with me, that kind of thing, and just working on my bottom game because it was always like I have smothering top pressure. I can hold anyone on the ground and beat them up. But if I get on
Mm.
bottom, at the time, I didn't have that much experience with that. And now I think I've come very far in both my jujitsu and wrestling. And I mean, I could whoop my own butt from 6 months ago.
I'd like to see that fight. All
Mhm.
right, UFC Fight Night, Santos versus Ankalaev. You took on Sabina Mazo.
You got it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a redneck from
No,
Arkansas.
you're good.
And win with a beautiful rear naked choke. Did you feel any extra pressure considering that a loss on paper would have been the dreaded three in a row?
Yeah, I mean, it was and it wasn't. I knew I was gonna win. We took that fight on short notice for a reason. I was like, "Oh, like, listen, I take her to the ground, she's done. Like, that's all there is to it, and we know I can take it to the ground. Like, basically, watch out for her long limb high kicks. That's about it. And I went in there knowing I wasn't gonna lose, but at the same time, there was that little thought in the back of my head of you cannot lose. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely not. Regardless of what the names were I'd lost to before that. Like at the time, Aaron wasn't up to the top yet and all that. It's a very scary situation. I was like, I don't want to get cut from the UFC my fourth fight. That's a terrible feeling. And
Hmm.
obviously, since then, I've done much better and made my way back up. But yeah, it was scary there for a bit.
You were mentioning the decision on the Macy Barber fight. Some of the research I was doing shows that 22 out of 22 media outlets scored that fight for you.
They did. I mean, it was voted the robbery of 2021. Like, it was
Yeah.
voted the end of the year nominations or whatever they do. So I was pretty happy that at least that was seen. I mean, I joke, but I'm like, I don't know if they literally got us confused. I mean, we're both white girls that have braids in our hair. I don't know, like, what happened. Maybe we needed like different colored clothes more. I don't know what the deal was, but obviously, like, as soon as I lost, I try to be a very respectful person. I'm not a person who throws fits
Mhm.
of any type. You know, I think God directs all things. And so at the time I was like, man, I lost. Like, I obviously didn't do enough, you know, and that was like right after she got her hand raised. I was very surprised, but I was like, dang, maybe I didn't do as good as I thought. You know, maybe my coaches were filling me full of crap in the corner. And even my dad was like, you got it. And then my dad was pissed. And usually he's not pissed. He's like pissed at me sometimes for losing, but usually he's not like pissed about a decision, you know? And I'm like, really though? Like, was it really that clear? And he's like, it was so clear, Miranda. Like, let's just rewatch the fight when we get
Yeah.
back to the hotel room. And we rewatched it, and I was so mad, like punched the hotel room wall, didn't break the rug, but I still punched something. And my dad was like, I didn't want to eat ice cream. Like, we always have like a tradition, like I eat and just
Mhm.
have, you know, fun that night and spend
Sure.
time in Vegas. We'll go on a walk together, like whatever it is. And at that time, it was just me and my dad since it was the COVID lockdown. And I was like, I'm not eating that ice cream. I don't deserve it. I lost. And that's kind of how I treat myself. I'm like,
Aw.
we suffer after I lose. Like, I don't get good food. Hell no. Like, I don't deserve that. And my dad was like, well, this time you do. Freaking eat the ice cream, you know? Very frustrating though. But again, can't go back and fix it. And I've had plenty of blessings in my life that's just a little, I don't even care anymore. You know, things are happening in my life that I want to happen. And I trust and have faith that what happened for a reason.
There you go. You're currently on a 3-fight winning streak and have a fight coming up in about 3 weeks. What are your thoughts on the change of opponent, and where does a fourth win in a row put you in the division?
The changed opponent. Since last time she was scheduled to fight me back in July, we literally gave it an 80% chance that she would drop out. That's what we did. And that's based on her past fights. And anybody can argue whatever. They like her because she shakes her ass on Instagram or whatever. But she drops out of so many of her fights. If you go look at it, she's had
Hmm.
6 fights. And in that same period of 6 fights, she's dropped out of 7 now. Like, you can't even argue that. That's just stats, and that's how it is. And I was like, she's not gonna show up. She only takes fights she wants to take. And you know, she's like, I have a surgery, I have whatever. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Maybe honestly, it's a genuine she had an injury, but why the hell wouldn't you tell, you know, the whole Twitter of, oh, it was a miscommunication. I'm like, yeah, she was unhealthy, not in fight shape, fingernails this long on her, going to every UFC fight on the weekends for like 3 weeks there. And we were all like, you know, my teammates would send it to me or this and that. And I'm like, she's not going to fight me. Like, she's not even getting in shape
Hmm.
for a fight. We're 5 weeks out from a fight, and you're probably weighing 160, like walking around with your
Ooh.
nails done. Like, come on, there's no way you're going to show up to the fight. And then it was laughable because like 2 days after that, I got the call that was like, hey, Tracy dropped out, da da da. And I'm like, oh my freaking goodness. And so I was like, all right, another top 15 opponent, let's go. And they were like, nobody's taking it. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And I don't know if they asked everybody, right? I'm not going to say Manon or Aaron didn't take the fight.
Sure.
But my guess is they offered it to like the 15 to the, you know, 10 level girls, and nobody would take the fight, 2 of which I know wouldn't take the fight. And very frustrating. So I was like, forget it. They were like, you could fight Myra Buena Silva. And I was like, done. And that was exciting because she's the girl who
Hmm.
fought for the 135-pound belt, right? And I was really
Sure.
happy with that matchup. And then they were like, never mind, she can't do it either. She'll fight in February, though. My guess is the weight, you know, so I'll give her a little credit that she's a bigger girl. So my
Sure.
guess is that. And now she's fighting Montana, I think, in February. So is what it is. And I was like, listen, I'm not fighting in February. Like, I have an adoption that I've scheduled around this fight, basically. And that doesn't mean I'll
Hmm.
have a baby in my hands right afterwards, but you know, it'll at least take my focus away from the fight. And I want to be ready in case, you know, that blessing happens in that period.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to wait 3 months for that to happen. And financially, I'm in a pickle right now with the adoption and other investments and stuff I've made. I was like, I want that fight in December. Give it to me. And I was like, I don't care who it is, ranked or not. If they're not going to fight me ranked, just find me somebody. So they just threw out like 3 names, and they gave me the one who answered back.
There you go.
Yep.
All right. Everybody fights for different reasons, whether it's money, fame, accolades. What is your reason for stepping in the octagon each time?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed over time, I'll be honest about that. A lot of the reason I fight is for the money, but there's a core to that, it's not like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I like money." I'm trying to invest for my future, I'm trying to make it to where my family has a good future, better than my childhood even was. I want my children to have better, and that's something that, my dad and mom tried to do way better than their life. They gave us a better life. I wanna do the same for my future
Mhm.
children, and with us adopting, which is obviously a huge thing that we're focused on right now, and hopefully having my own children in the future, like I'm trying to get land figured out, a secure home figured out back in Missouri, near the family's ranch, and just get everything in order to where I don't have to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. And that's another reason I work a full time job along with fighting. It's like I
Mhm.
don't want to have to be like, yeah, I have this degree, but I haven't worked for 15 years, and then be like, but why? And maybe like, well, I'm an athlete, that should stand for something. And they'll be like, sure,
Mhm.
here's an entry level position, sign the paper. I'm like, I'm not trying to go be an assistant coach at my local gym at the age of
Right.
40, after I've been a UFC fighter. So trying to figure out my stuff and get my life in order and make the proper investments and start my own businesses. And a lot of that is being in the UFC and having
Mhm.
that financial backing to be able to put it into what I need, and help my family with that as well. Help my brother and sister-in-law get on their feet with their lifestyle, help my sister if I can, help my family, help retire my stepmother, like whatever the steps are that we're planning on doing within my family. Like that's the main reason I fight. And then secondary to that, of course, shouldn't even say secondary, but like be inspirational. I use my platform the best I can, to do good in this world. And I don't think this world is good. I think we're all evil, dead creatures, and only Jesus and God make us good. So anything good about me is good that Christ has given me. But that platform allows me to spread that, and it allows me to
Mhm.
share that with other people. It gives me a way to share the gospel. And, some people are against that and they see it as contradictory that I fight and then spread the gospel. I would argue very against that aspect. I always joke with people, I've been called satanic for fighting people before. And I'm like, and it's usually like older ladies, and I'm like, okay, do you call your grandson satanic because he plays football? He gives people concussions too and tries to hurt them. Like,
The ones with the tattoos.
yeah, right. Right. And so for me it's just like a platform. Like I said, every time I can get on the mic and thank God, every time I can get on the mic
Mhm.
and donate to a good cause, or, spread through my Instagram posts and stuff, like my reason for being the blessings I have, I see that as a huge huge reason to be where I'm at and continue fighting.
Absolutely. That's awesome. What fighter in your life has been your biggest source of inspiration?
Yeah, well, no fighters actually. I mean, I have
Okay.
fighters I look up to, of course, but I'll just say my dad. I think he's
Okay.
my biggest inspiration in life. He came from some shit. We'll just say that. His family was not a great family that he grew up in, was around, and he made a big decision when he was a very young person. A teenager, like people who are still on their mommy and daddy's titty at this point in life, usually. And he went out on his own, completely cut off his family, and went on to make his own life and struggle through everything, cut wood for a living, literally chopping
Mm.
wood to make ends meet, for many years, well, not for many years, but a year or two. And then, made his way with ranching and cattle, and struggled and was in debt for years, and then had me. I was the oldest, and my siblings, and he did a great job of taking care of us, all the time. We never had daycare or anything like that. And my mom, of course, helped with that, but most of the time we were around my dad, with my dad, and we're taught work ethic and gratitude, and just everything that I've learned in life, I guess you'd say, is from my dad. And I just hope to pass that on and end even some more of the problems that he may have had and was trying to get away from. And now I know even better through his teaching. Something I love him saying is like, if you're getting chased by a bear in the woods, I don't want to just throw you up on the first limb and then the bear climb up and just grab you and eat you. I want to throw you up on the fifth limb. He's like, I want to make it to where you can throw your kids up on the very top limb as far as safety and security in life. And that's what he's done for me. And that's what I want to kind of impact others through doing, and obviously my own children.
Big shout out, Papa Maverick.
Yeah.
What is your Mount Rushmore of MMA?
Yeah, I've been asked that before, and it's always hard, and I think I change it every single time. And my biggest problem is I have a lot of trouble separating the person from the athlete.
Okay,
Because there's a lot of people who are great athletes who I do not respect as humans. And so
sure.
that makes it hard for me. But I'll try to be just MMA focused this time around.
Okay,
So I'd put GSP up there. Um,
absolutely.
I'd put John Jones up there, even though I don't like him. And then I'd put probably Nunes up there.
Hmm.
Ronda Rousey for sure. Um, hmm, and maybe Brock Lesnar.
Okay,
And I say that
awesome.
because of, like, the impact they've made, not
Yeah,
necessarily how good of a fighter or they didn't win as many times as this one or have as many records. Like, the Brock Lesnar is probably the silliest one, but it's like he brought a whole crowd of people who had
yeah.
no idea what MMA was, didn't respect it, anything, who were like, these hillbilly, like, like
Hmm.
I've been a part of the professional wrestling world. It's a different world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the people who are like, "Yeah," like, screaming and so excited, and he brought them over to this sport
Hmm.
and made them enjoy it, and most of them stayed because of him. So,
Yeah.
I always respect that. Obviously, Ronda was a huge pioneer in women's MMA, and she's not my favorite person. I don't exactly respect her walk to the top, some parts of it, but as far as an athlete, as far as an inspiration for people to get involved and for girls everywhere to get involved and start playing their role in sports,
Hmm.
huge impact, huge impact. Can't take anything away from her. And then Nunes, mainly just because of her skill and staying at the top.
Yeah.
She made a huge impact worldwide rather than just in like America, I guess you'd say. And then GSP is just my favorite. I love GSP, and he was one of those people who's on the top for so long. And like,
Hmm.
he never. It's funny because the way I started fighting when I was younger, it was like I want to be GSP style. Like, you may look like you're just not even winning that good, and then you're like, boom, put a stamp on it, I win, and
Hmm.
then it's like every time. And his book, Why I Fight, was always really cool for me to read too.
Yeah, hearing him talk about his struggle, his mental struggles and problems with fighting is really wild that he was able to accomplish what he was able to accomplish going through those mental
Yeah,
struggles.
yeah, and the fact that he continues training and staying in shape is
Hmm.
pretty impressive too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, here's a question I bet you've never been asked before. What do you like better, pulled pork or brisket?
Brisket. I actually don't eat pork.
Okay, there we go. Do you like it sliced, chopped, or do you like some good burnt ends?
Ooh, probably burnt ends. Yeah,
Okay.
burnt ends. Yeah.
If you're ever in
I take
Fayetteville,
it all though. I like beef. Put barbecue sauce on it, I'm eating it.
awesome. If you're ever in Fayetteville, Arkansas, send me a message. I will hook you up with world championship winning barbecue. That's what I do when I'm not talking to fighters.
Okay, that'd be pretty awesome. I actually lived down in Waldron, Arkansas for several years, and I go
Okay,
down there and do speeches at the high school here and there. So if I
awesome.
pass through, I'll let you know.
All right, we'll take a picture and put you up on the wall for everyone. We've got a few celebrities up there.
All right.
All right, coffee or energy drinks?
Neither, but energy drinks.
Okay, both in their prime, Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson?
Mm, Mike Tyson.
All right, are you a dog person or a cat person?
Dog.
All right,
Big
you're
dogs.
going on what?
Big dogs only.
Big dogs only. Okay, you're going on vacation. Do you prefer a ski resort or a cruise ship?
Ski resort.
All right, how many times have you watched Bloodsport?
10.
I think that's the lowest number yet.
Really?
That's
Well,
awesome. Yeah.
I'm a little young, so it
Sure.
was
Yeah.
already kind of falling out, but I definitely watched it when I was young multiple times.
Awesome. All right. Of all the big important executive type people in the UFC, Dana White, Hunter, all the big wigs, who would you prefer to sing "Happy Birthday" to you?
Where's Cinco?
There we go.
Or Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan
There
would
we
be
go, Joe Rogan.
cool.
All right. What if as you know, the reason I do these interviews is try to inspire people who are struggling with whatever is going on in their life. What sort of a message do you have to share with people who are needing some inspiration, who are struggling, maybe don't know how to ask for help? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Well, from a mental health perspective, I've always been a huge proponent of, communicating, recognizing that everyone has problems. I shared a lot on my social media because social media is such a positive platform. A lot of times from athletes and stuff, like we love sharing when we win, we love sharing the good times. You don't really see us crying or the bruises and bumps, unless it's to like build ourselves up.
Hmm.
So I like showing the sad parts of it too, like the hard times that we do have, the stresses that we have,
Yep.
and everybody has that. I've had, like the couple weeks that I was in turmoil over what my life was going to look like with the retina
Mhm.
surgery, when I've had my knee surgeries, different things like that. And then like just family stuff, that can be hard and rough. Like your mental health isn't always 100%. And for myself, like, and I'd tell anybody this, whether you're a believer or not, like lean on God, and find people to lean on too. Have a support system, find a support system. And whether it's embarrassing or not, sometimes it's worth just that sickening feeling in your gut to just be like, okay, I'm telling someone,
Mhm.
even though it feels like it's going to suck to do so. And it helps so much. I credit my husband with a lot of my own mental health now. He helps all the time. He's a great listener. He's huge at being able to kind of talk me through it biblically and with my family, and helping me direct like how to handle those conversations without making them too intense and things, because that's usually where mine is either family stuff or my own like physical like fatigue and stress.
Mhm.
But then, I feel like on the other end of that, like as far as going after stuff, as far as chasing your dreams, God gave us abilities for a reason. God gave us this purpose. And if you don't feel a purpose, then go after multiple ones. Find a purpose. It doesn't have to be your, I don't know, the best this or the best that. Like find something that you love and just be the best at it that you can be. We're not
Mhm.
competing against each other per se. We're not competing against worldly things. We're competing against being the version of ourselves, the best version of ourselves that you can be. And that's kind of what I would say. Always be the best version of yourself. And if you aren't, or if you haven't been in the past, man, repent and don't like. I always think the whole idea of self forgiveness and um, self-talk and all, I think that's all bullshit. Um, that's how I feel about it. It's like, give that to God. It's not supposed to be about self. It's supposed to be about him. It's supposed to be about helping others. So when you feel down and out about yourself, like go help somebody else. Make sure that doesn't happen to
Mhm.
someone else. Make sure it doesn't happen to yourself again by finding purpose and helping those others, maybe in that way or another.
Absolutely. I only compare myself to me yesterday.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. When you aren't competing for the world's largest MMA organization, and aren't training or working a full-time job or being a supportive girlfriend or wife, excuse me, and family member, how do you have time for Prowler pickles and high-stakes hunting?
Man, it's hard. It's very hard. Like on weekends that I am not training, like usually I take Sundays off and most of Saturday or vice versa. I work on that and I'll work on it day in, day out when I don't have fights coming up. If I take off a training day, like the good thing about honey and pickles is they don't like last a week, they last years on the shelf. So
Yeah.
like when I don't have a fight coming up, I'll get stocked up and like just load them up of everything, and obviously make sure that I extract honey and work with the other local beekeepers to extract on times that I don't have a fight coming up. And if I do, I have to, I mean, bees aren't like they're going to be like, oh, our honey's gone next week. Like you can always reschedule stuff. So I
Mhm.
made sure that I found businesses that aren't too time sensitive, to where when I do have free time, when I don't have a fight coming up, I can focus more on that stuff. And then as far as just shipping out orders and keeping up with them, I just find that in the very few moments of spare time I have. And I don't really do anything else. I literally work, and my passions are my work, which is nice. And I know that I might be able to help a future family member at some point, like I'm hoping to make it to where my pickles and honey get big enough that I can pass that on to a family member or two that may not have the best job, or something like that. And they can just literally make pickles and make their living. That'd be pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in researching for this, I don't have a lot of sources. I don't even have an Instagram account. It's Wikipedia and Facebook for me. I looked at your page, and I looked at your husband's page, and you guys seem like the happiest, most like you guys seem like the standard. Congratulations!
Thank
You
you.
seem perfect for each other. It's really inspiring to see that.
Thank
You
you.
don't see a lot of that anymore.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. We definitely try to keep God at the center, and not only that, like we definitely wouldn't have found each other purely on our own kind of thing. Like, we're like, oh, God directed this 100%. Like, the circumstances that led to it, it was the second person I ever dated for real. And it was the first date that I ever had on online dating. Like, I met him through
Okay.
Tinder off of a friend's bet. And it was the first date I went on, and I met him. And we're together
Shout
now.
out Tinder.
Yeah, exactly. We've definitely had our hardships, our ups and downs, and he came, and I think the biggest thing, like I said, was during my eye surgery, and he came every day, or maybe every other day, but almost close to every day, and we weren't even close or anything. There was nothing I was giving back or anything yet, and he'd come and give me my eye drops and give me my medicine, and help walk me around, take me to the park because I was blind, for quite a little while. He just helped me out, and he had to meet my dad 2 weeks after knowing me. And that was intense because my dad had never met anyone
Right.
who I was interested in, and I'm the oldest, so he was the first, he was the trial run, and I was so scared. And I remember being like, Dad, I really like this guy. Like, this is what I prayed for. Like, he's a good human. He believes in God. He's this, he's that. And my dad was like, yeah, we'll see about that, And I'm like, because I really am, like, I'm so close with my dad. I have a very close relationship with him that if my dad was like, I don't like this guy, I would be one of the girls who would be like, I'm sorry, my dad doesn't like you, and that means that you fucked up. And it's just like that, I get that you should go away from your parents and bond to one another, but that's after you get to know them, And if I
Sure.
didn't know him that well, my dad already didn't like him, we would have had problems. But he's great. He's amazing, an amazing husband, and we fall into the roles that we're supposed to fall into. I don't try to be, sometimes I am, I will admit, a bossy wife, and I have very high ambition. I'm always trying to get stuff done. But he's very good at leading when he needs to, and he leads at the stuff that he needs to, like as far as teaching, and when I start getting upset or emotional, like, he kind of is like, hey, none of that. Like, we need to level this up a little bit. And we're just really good about just communicating, I'd say, is the core of it all. And I'm very blessed to have found him.
Awesome. Where do you see your UFC career in a year?
Man, hopefully top 10 at least. I want 3 more fights in a year, but we'll see if that happens. I'm always begging for fights, even if I have to take short notices, which has been the majority of my UFC career. And hopefully some girls will quit being chicken shits. So
Yeah, you got to get under their skin.
yeah, start calling every single one of them out or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
All right. What is the best way for friends and fans of yours to keep up with you and what you have going on today?
Yeah, well, you guys can go check out prowlerpickles.com. That's where you can get pickles, honey. I've got asparagus, jalapenos, Bloody Mary mixes, all kinds of stuff. Beeswax candles. So prowlerpickles.com. Go check that out. I also have fearthemaverick.com. And that has all my merchandise and stuff. So if you want to get some of my swag, hats, autographed pictures, all that kind of stuff, it's on there. And then just follow me at Fear the Maverick on just about any social media account, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's all the same at Fear the Maverick. And then fearthemaverick.com. It's all the same. So easy.
Awesome. Miranda, that's all I've got for you today. I want to say thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for sharing your time. I tell everyone at this point, I've done so much research and talked to you. I feel like we're friends. I hope you consider me the same. I'll upload this and send you a copy. If for any reason you don't like it, let me know. I'll take it down. Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, and I'll like it. So don't worry about that. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll be watching your next fight.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.